For the project, the blank that I use is typically about 5 inches long, and I'm using what is called 8/4 wood. This particular is hard maple. Cherry works extremely well for this project, and basically any of the woods. The only wood that you really don't want to use is a highly spalted wood that will, there's a couple areas where you get kind of thin and that it would break. I'm just using a square piece that's perfectly square so it can go into the chuck like so. It has a very square back so that whenever I put it in, it'll square up very nice. And all I do here is just tighten it up good and tight. Now, under normal conditions, I run this with a sliding shield over top of it, but because of the camera you won't be able to see it, so I will be just doing it without my sliding guard over top. The first item that we are going to do is round it up, and for that I'm going to start it up a little bit slow and then speed it up. And all I'm going to do here is round it off with a roughing gouge. This is a very simple project. Really, it's a beginner project. So, it's probably the most simple Christmas order I think I've ever really made. Not much to this. Just round it up. And then in this particular case, I know that the top of the hat, you can see that I need to probably do that just a little bit more, make it round, otherwise there'll be a let's see what that looks like. That'll work. We'll be right about there. What I typically do is measure about 2 inches down, and 2 inches is right about there. I know that that's about what I want. You can make a hat any height. So what I'm doing is just measuring for the hat, and then we'll have the body here parted off. So what I'm going to do is make the top of this right now. I know that it's going to be right about there, so I'm going to flatten out just a little bit more and speed it up, and just want to check that and make sure it's still tight. They tend to loosen up a little bit. I'm just going to make I take a spindle gouge to start the, just put a little ball on the top, take it down to size, roll a little ball on the top, let's take it down, roll another little one like this. It doesn't have to be perfect. Finish up my top. then what you want to do is just sand it a little bit. And on mine, I tend to like to put a bead on them at the base, right here. Nice little bead. So I just use one of the beading tools. And let's just break that edge just a little bit. Okay. We're pretty much done with that top. I want this base to be ready to come out to about here for the body. So all I'm going to do is just, what you want to do is just really reduce this down to probably about 3/16 to maybe a 1/4 inch smaller than the top for the fur. You can do that multiple ways. You could use, but I will tell you, your roughing gouge works extremely well for this. All we're doing is really just kind of roughing that down. And there's really, because the fur is going to go on this, you really don't have to be really critical on this. You can leave a bunch of ridges. It really doesn't make much difference because it's going to get covered up. And make sure you get good and down. Because when you glue the fur on, you want to make sure it's underneath. And we're really in pretty good spot here. So I'm going to take this down just a little bit more. We're now ready to put the finish on the top. I use a wax finish. And what I'm going to use here is this Doctor's Workshop pen finish. It has wax and shellac. I think it's shellac that's in this. You shake it up real good. Slow this way down. Let's make sure that I saw something there, a little fuzz. Okay, that's okay. Turn that back on. We checked it. And all you want to do is just flood this on. Just dribble it on. And you don't really want to put any on you don't need to put any on the base. Put that on. It dries real quick. And while that's drying, this groove I like to make, you can darken it. One thing I found, some people use wire to put a burned line. What I do is use the Formica method, where you cut down and make thin Formica. You can grind it on your grinder however you want, speed it up, and you'll see how fast this really works. With that wax, it really doesn't want to burn. There we go. Had to get through that wax. Usually I burn that before I put that wax on. I forgot this time. Let's see what it looks like. It doesn't look too bad. Let's put another coat of wax on. Beat it up, buff that out. Buff it out. Now normally I would not, I know that it's going to look okay, but for the camera purpose we'll just turn it off and let you take a look. As you can see, it has a nice smooth finish on it. We'll turn that back up. And I just use a parting tool, and right about here just take the parting tool in, grab a hold, and finish cutting it off. Yeah. And there's actually the piece right here. It's pretty much done. What I'm going to do is take it over to a belt sander and just sand that off. And I'll come back to the camera and show that to you here in a minute. This is what it looks like after you use the belt sander on it. And I typically just take a little bit of the finish that we had before. Well, I guess you got to open it up. Put a drop on it, smear it around, wipe it off, and that gives you a good enough base that you can mark it. And that's the top for now. Next, what we're going to do is make the nose. For the nose, I just use a standard, chuck, Jacob's chuck, and I also have a drawbar on mine so it doesn't come out. I'm going to hook the drawbar in. And typically, whenever I do these, I will make, because I was making maybe 20 of these ornaments at one time, I'll do a whole bunch of these noses, all of them at one time, so you don't have to do all this change up. I'm using nothing more than a little dowel rod, furniture dowel. I think this is a 3/8 dowel. Yes, 3/8. And this particular one is 1.5 inches long. If you went with longer ones, you could probably get 2 noses out of it. Tighten it up. The lathe is on pretty much a high speed right now. All you do is just roll a little tip like this, clean up just a little bit, and the nose really doesn't have to be perfectly round. You can make it many different ways. I do it a little bit that way, and then sand it just a little bit, and then work my way down. And then you notice I'm not pushing in towards the chuck, because if you slip off, you'll hit your chuck too much. So just very gently. You can put finish on it or wait till later to put it on. And that's a nose. You can pop those out really, really fast. Pull it out, throw that away and put your next one in and do your next nose. But you can make noses very fast. The next thing you want to do is put a hole in the top of this for your eye. And I just use a small drill on a flex shaft. You can use a small drill. There's all kinds of ways of putting that in. I'm just going to drill a small hole in it. I've sized this already for the hook that I plan on making for you. And it appears that just drill it in. That would be, drill that in. And we have to have a hole for the for the nose. So I just use, I know that 1/8 inch drill is probably the right size. It's really just about any place that you want it. You can just drill a hole in it. Like I said, this is not rocket science with critical measurements. So that is actually ready for assembly. Our next step in the process is to cut the fur or the hair for our cousin It. This particular fur has a cloth back. It's really fake fur, and this particular one comes from Hobby Lobby. This piece on sale costs about $3. I think retail without sale it's about $4, and you probably get about 8 or more of these out of it. What you do is you just line it up, and as you can see, what you want to do is have the bottom of the fur come out right about here. So what we want to do is cut a strip. So I'm just going to lay this straight edge on here, and what you do is take a razor blade. Now you don't want to go the whole way through cutting all the fur, you just want to cut through just the fabric part. So push down and cut down very carefully so you don't cut down through the fur. And you want a good sharp blade to make sure that otherwise it wants to stick too much. And it looks like I didn't get it the whole way through down here. That would be the piece of fur. Now you want to go the whole way around, so just line it up, and as you can see it lines up there. You're going to come the whole way around, and what you want to do is measure so that it comes right, right about where you want the scissors. What you want to do is measure right about where it's going to come. You can, this stuff stretches a little bit, so you have a little bit of wiggle factor. So it's going to be right about there. What you want to do is, this is the piece you're going to use, so you want to make sure the fur comes this way and kind of brush it down so you don't cut it flat, otherwise it looks like you scalped them. Cut that. Problem is that is usually the other piece is a little bit usually too short. I guess I could have cut that. Let's straighten that up just a little bit. This piece is usually a little too short to do a second one, so you can save it. A lot of times it gets thrown away. Where the nose is going to go, you want to cut just a little slot right at about halfway through. You just want to cut a slot for the nose, so you can insert the nose through the fabric. So now your nose is right there. And get a good hot melt glue gun. And as you can see, it is hot. I just tested it. And what I do is I just squirt a little bit of glue in the hole, right like that. And push the nose in. So now we've got a nose in there. Slide this down so make sure that this is going to fit in. And sometimes you have to pull that down. There we go. I fold this down like so, and I run a bead of hot melt glue the whole way around. And I like doing it with the gloves on, mainly because if you slip with the hot melt glue, it gets hot on your hand. So I very carefully put that around like so. Hold it for a second. Make sure it's down in good. And then I fold this back. Fold this one back and put my last batch of hot melt glue. Now you got your cousin it, and all we got to do now is put a hook on the top. For the top of the eyes, what I use was just some leftover cable vision wire, and that wire is usually quite rigid or hard and doesn't bend very well. So what I do is, there's many ways you can make these eyes. I just take a little bit of it, strip it out, throw that part away, because that's very hard, it doesn't want to bend. I just take a little propane torch, heat it up cherry red, that's good and hot. That annealed it. I will bend it over just a little bit like so. And what I typically do is cut it off. And by this time it's cool enough that you can usually get a hold of it. I'll bend it down. And I wrap it around a piece of something that's about the size of the whole eyelet that I want. Pinch it down, and then just grab a hold of it. Not your finger. Grab a hold, twist it a few times. Makes a pretty nice eyelet. And you can take it, let's get that fur off of it. Don't need fur on it. You typically take it, and because it's right, and you can literally just screw it right with these pliers. You can usually just screw it right in. And that's it. There you go. And you have your cousin it. This will give you an idea of what some different variations that you can do. They're just your imagination from here on out. I've made probably about 30 of these. No two are ever the same. Just to give you some ideas.